Hi, this is PG of PG's Lumacy. I would like to present to you an updated version of my tutorial on making the poodle on the Rainbow Loom. The details that were missed and the information that was not given in the original tutorial were added in this new version. For this tutorial, the loom will be in the standard offset configuration, which means that the pins will be staggered. And the colors that we will be using will be pink for the fluffy hairs on the poodle, white for the portions of the poodle that are usually shaved when they are groomed, and black for the eyes and the nose. We will only be using a single loom for this project, but we will have to do it in multiple steps. And the first of those steps would be to place 5 rows of single double looped bands on the loom. And to do a double loop band, we place a single band on 2 pins and then twist it and then place the loop that's formed back on the pins to form a double looped pin. You also have the option of twisting a single band, folding it to itself to form a double looped, and placing it on the next pins. So it's up to you what technique you would like to use. You either double loop it on the loom like this, or you double loop it out of the loom and then place the double loop band on the loom. But we will need 5 rows of double loop bands for the front legs, and then we will cap that set of bands with a single band that is wrapped on this pin 4 times. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Let's do that again for the other leg, and I will be using the pins on the lower portion of the loom. For those of you making their own designs, you could use this technique to make finer arms and legs for your action figures. We cap these bands with a single band wrapped 4 times on the pin. 1, 2, 3, and 4. The next thing that we will do is to loop the bands for the front legs. So grab the double bands from underneath the cap band and loop it to the forward pin. These bands are stretched more than usual, so be careful in looping them. And once you're done looping, you just take them off the loom and then secure the end loops with a toothpick and set it aside until you are ready to use it for the poodle. You will need to stretch the bands and make sure there's not a lot of twisting, so you will get a neat looking piece. And then you set this aside until you are ready to attach it to the main body. Let's do that again for the other leg. Now that we have made the legs, we are now ready to work on the main piece for the poodle. And let's start by placing the pink bands, pink double bands for the fluffy hair on the head. And then white double bands for the face. There's the first row of white double bands for the face. Take note of how we place the second row. We place the white double bands in the center, and then for the sides they will be placed in a diagonal from the center pin to the side pins, and we will do that on the other side. And then we will be placing double bands, white double bands for the neck. Let us now place pink double bands for the body of the poodle to resemble the fluffy hair on its chests. And we will place the pink bands, the first row, this way. A vertical pair on the center and diagonal bands on the sides. And then we will place vertical bands again on the sides. And then we will add another row of pink double bands. And then just one more pair of double bands in the center. So that is how the pink bands are placed on the chest area of the poodle. Now let us work on the poodle's lower body, and this time we will be using white double bands. This guide that I am using can be downloaded and printed from the link that is found in the description of this video. Again, we are placing white double bands for the lower body of the poodle. So check to see if you have the same layout. We have 3 double bands on the sides and 2 white double bands in the center. To that, we will add diagonal bands on these pins. So from the side pin to the center pin in a diagonal, and we will do that for the other side as well. This might be a good time for you to check your work on the main body of the poodle, the upper body with the pink double bands and the lower body with the white double bands, and make sure that you have the same arrangement. Let us add the hind legs for the poodle. And we will be placing 3 rows of double white bands for that. 1, 2, and 3. Let's do that on the other side. 1, 2, and 3. We will cap these end bands with a single band, and we will wrap it 4 times on this end pin. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Let's do that for this other end pin 4 times. 1, 2, 3, and 4. This is the layout of the bands on the loom. You might want to pause the video and check to see if you have the same layout. Now, to hold the piece together and to define the shape of the figure, we will be placing the horizontal bands. And for the head area, we will be placing double looped bands. So to make that, we twist a band and fold it to itself to form a double loop band and place it on these 3 pins. Let's do that again for these 3 pins. Twist and fold, forms a double loop, and then we place it on the pins. We will do the same for the body. And take note that for these 3 pins, we are using a single band, which means it is not looped, but it is simply placed on the 3 pins. We will also do that for the next row of pins. Just a single band, no looping. And then as we get to these next 3 pins, we will make a double loop again. So twist, fold to itself, and it forms a double loop, and we place that on the 3 pins. And then another double loop band, twist, fold, form a double loop band, and then we place it on the pins. So this is now the layout with the horizontal bands in place. You might want to pause the video and check to see if you have the same layout. It's time to loop the bands, and we will start with the hind legs. You grab the double bands from underneath the cap bands and you loop it to the forward pin. Let's do that again for the other side. Now let us loop the bands for the lower body. So we took the diagonal band from this pin and looped it to this pin. Let's do that on the other side. Take note of what happened here. I took 2 bands, but one of them is from this pair and one of them is from this pair. And that means that I grabbed the wrong band. So we will be redoing that, just putting them back, then making sure that I will be grabbing these diagonal bands. Sometimes you have to look at it from the side, see the twisting that happened there. You just have to fix that, and then push this down a bit so there will be no confusion. Okay, so let's do that again. Let's grab these diagonal bands and then loop them to the forward pin on the center. Okay, and then loop this band, then loop the band. When you see these teardrop shapes that are formed in your looping, you know that you are doing the right thing. So vertical bands are easier to loop, and let's do that. Now we are ready to loop the bands on the chest area of the poodle. The pink bands that resemble the fluffy hair on a poodle's chest. But before we do that, don't forget to attach the legs, the front legs on the body. And to do that, we take the legs that we made earlier. Sometimes I mistakenly call them arms. You replace the toothpick with a hook. So you get all 4 loops, and then attach the leg to this section over here. And then just position it this way. Let's do that for the other leg. So that is how the legs are attached. The front legs are attached to the main body. Now we can loop the bands for the chest area. So for this, just go to the bottom of the layers and you will take out the pair. Make sure you get the 2 of them, and then you loop to the forward pin. Go to the bottom of the layer. We are looking for these bands. And take them out of there, wiggle them a bit, and then place on the forward pin. When you get to these top pink bands on the chest area, first loop the side bands to the center pin. And then loop the center bands also to the center pin. It just looks neater that way. And now we will loop the bands for the neck. And onto the bands on the face. But before we loop the bands on the face area, particularly the jaw area for the poodle, we will first place the muzzle for the poodle. To make the muzzle for the poodle, you could use the regular Rainbow Loom hook. But for finer details and features, I prefer to use a fine crochet hook. I'm using a number 1. It's a 2.75 mm hook. And we wrap a black single band on the hook 4 times. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then we get 2 white bands, and then thread those bands into the black band that's on the hook, and make sure that this black band is centered on the piece for the muzzle for the dog, so you won't have a hard time when you are finishing the project later. Okay, now you take this double looped band that is in the jaw area and keep it double looped, and we will get that double loop band into the loops for the muzzle. Okay, and then we just place it back on the pins where we got it from. Okay, and then you get this center part of the horizontal band and get it over this pin over here. And then make sure this black band is showing. This is going to be the nose pad for the poodle. And we have just placed the snout piece for the poodle. Now we go back to looping the bands, and we work with these diagonal bands. We figure out which is on top, and in my case it's this one. So we grab those ones first. These double bands are looped to this pin over here. Then we grab the next one, and these bands are looped on this pin. And then for the center bands, we loop them onto these pins over here. Now let us loop these vertical bands on the face. And when we get to these top double pink bands, before we loop them, we first move their upper ends to the center pin, just for a neater top of the head. We move the bands from the sides to the center pin, and then we loop them. Again, we start with the bands on the sides. And remember this, before you loop this center double pink bands, you first place 2 single bands, and you will wrap these bands twice on the pin. 1, 2. Then make room for the second one. 1 and 2. And these bands that we just added will form the fluffy hair on top of the poodle's head. And then we loop the bands on the center to the top center pin. So this is how the loom will look when we're finished looping the bands. You might want to pause the video and check to see if you have the same layout. All we need to do now is to secure the top bands with a single band. I've inserted the hook into these bands on the top of the head, and then I will get a single band into those loops and then form a knot with that single band on the top of the head. Make sure it is securely fastened, but don't pull in it too much because it will break that band. You could do that later when it is off the loom. And then you get the piece off the loom very carefully, especially with the thick layers of bands. You might want to use the hook to somehow support the bands on the thicker layers so they don't get stretched out too much. Stretch out the bands so that they will fall into place. You could use a pair of tweezers to take away the twists to give the piece a better looking shape. Just pull the bands into place, stretch them out, and then pull the muscle out of these bands over here. Okay, fix everything. Okay. Now let us add the other details on the poodle, beginning with the eyes. To make the eyes, you will tie a knot on a single band. I use a hook for this because it's easier. Just wrap it around your fingers and then get that loop in there to form a knot. And make sure your knot is in the center of the band before tightening it. And then we will do that one more time. To have a bigger knot, it will be a double knot, and this will be for the eyes. To attach the eyes to the face, you will be looking for these horizontal bands underneath the main bands. Okay, you're looking for these horizontal bands. They will be the ones that will be holding on the eye. Okay, and to do that, we will go to the back side of the head and insert our hook so that we will get to this section over here. And then we pull in one of the loops that was formed on the eyepiece and pull it into the face. It comes out the back. And we let go of that, and then we reinsert our hook. But this time you will want your hook to come out the front, and it will be under the horizontal band, and then we will pull in that other loop until it comes out the back. The reason why we did that is so there will be bands that are holding on to the eye piece, and so even if kids will be playing with the piece, the eyes will not be pulled out. There's something holding on to them. I have made the piece for the other eye, and I would like to show you how to do it for the other side, just so you will master this technique. Like I said, we are looking for these horizontal bands that are inside the figure. These are the horizontal bands, and we are working with them. And what we do is to insert the hook into the back side, and for our first loop we want to come out in front and above the horizontal bands. So you see that? I am above this horizontal band over here, and that is where I get the loop from the eyepiece, and I pull it into the face area, and I pull it out the back. There you go. And I reinsert my hook, but this time when I come out the front, I want to be below. I want it to come out from below the horizontal band. See, I am now below this horizontal band. You can even go as far as going below this two horizontal bands. So you see that? The first one is above, and the second one is below. And then we take that other loop and we pull it into the face area, and we pull it out the back. And I already explained to you why I wanted to do it that way. That's so there will be bands that are holding on to the eye piece. Okay. There you go. So it doesn't get pulled out. See that? The horizontal bands are holding on to the eyepiece. And then what you do with these loops is to secure them with a C-clip. And just make sure that they are fastened securely on the C-clip. Then we pull out the knots, and that will be the eyes for our poodle. Okay, so it's up to you. If you want bigger eyes, pull them out. If you want smaller eyes, just push them in and, you know, hide them with the bands on the face. So that is how we attach the eyes to our poodle. Now we are going to make 3 additional pieces. 2 of them will be the ears, and 1 will be the tail. And we will again wrap a single pink band on the hook. I'm using the finer hook, and we'll wrap that 4 times. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then we get a white band into those loops, and then tie a knot with this white band. So it will hold those loops. together. Make 2 more of these so that we will get the other ear and the tail. I've heard some people say that they are having a hard time doing this with just the hook. So I tried doing this on the loom, and you might want to try it too. So just place a single white band on 2 pins, and then wrap a pink single band on the end pin 4 times, and then you grab a hook, and then you pull it out, and then you make a knot with that hook. So you get the same piece, but it might be easier for you to do it that way. So we have our 3 identical pieces. The 2 of them will be for the ears. Let's put the ears. Just insert the hook on these bands on the head. Pull this white band from the earpiece, make a knot with it, and then pull it out. If you want it shorter, you could just loosen the knot and it will stay in place. Let's do that for the other ear. And for the tail, just go to the tail section. Okay. Get the white band from the tail piece in there. You form a knot. And then pull it tight. Then you have the tail for the poodle. Now just to do the finishing touches for the poodle, just stretch. If you want the poodle in a sitting position, just pull these bands in, and then depending on which you pull, if you pull these bands out, it will send your other bands that way. You pull these bands out and your bands will go in that direction, and that will place your poodle in a seated position. Another detail that you could add would be to simulate the fluffy hairs on the wrists sections. If ever poodles had wrists, I think groomers call these bracelets. Just loop a pink single bands on those areas. 3 loops will do. Okay, so the poodle will have those bracelets, as the groomers call them. And there you have it, the poodle made on the Rainbow Loom.